the image on the shroud. It is almost a photographic negative of a body that has all of the wounds that Christ would have had.
The Shroud of Turin, an ancient linen cloth wrapped in mystery and debate, is believed by some to be the burial cloth of Jesus Christ, showing his crucified image. For years, scientists and theologians have examined it, reaching differing conclusions and sparking heated discussions. Now, Glenn Beck, known for his bold insights, has introduced new evidence that could upend the understanding of this historical puzzle. Could this relic be the authentic shroud of Jesus, or is it an elaborate forgery? Join us as we dive into Glenn Beck's shocking new evidence on the Shroud of Turin. The Shroud of Turin's scientific secrets. In the late 1970s, a significant effort focused on studying the Shroud of Turin through a project known as STURP, which stands for the Shroud of Turin Research Project. This group, consisting of American scientists and researchers, dedicated over 2 years to preparing a series of tests aimed at gathering extensive data about the shroud in a relatively short time frame. Their main objective was to uncover the scientific properties of the image on the Shroud of Turin and understand its origins. In October 1978, the STURP team embarked on an intense examination of the shroud, working tirelessly for 120 consecutive hours. Their research aimed to determine if the image on the shroud, depicting a man who appears to have been scourged and crucified, resulted from a medieval hoax or something more extraordinary. According to a team of Italian scientists, the Shroud of Turin was not merely a product of medieval craftsmanship, but was instead created by a supernatural flash of light. Experts from Italy's National Agency for New Technologies, Energy, and Sustainable Development have concluded that the shroud, often believed to be the burial cloth of Jesus Christ, could not have been forged. The double image on the shroud, showing the front and back of a scourged and crucified man, has such unique physical and chemical characteristics that replicating it in a modern laboratory would be impossible. The impossibility of recreating the exact details of the image leads to the conclusion that the true nature of how the shroud's image was formed remains an enduring mystery. Their study delved into cutting-edge laser technology, using precise pulses of laser light to explore the mysterious Shroud of Turin. This research also revisits the work of the Shroud of Turin Research Project, led by John Jackson. In 1978, Jackson and his team traveled to Italy to examine the shroud, a piece of cloth believed by many to bear the image of Jesus Christ. Jackson, who now directs the Turin Shroud Center in Colorado Springs, has dedicated his career to unraveling the shroud's mysteries. In medieval times, creating an image like the one on the shroud using ultraviolet light would have been impossible due to the lack of advanced technology. This fact adds to the shroud's allure as an unsolved puzzle. Jackson's team is captivated by the unique characteristics of the shroud's image, which defy easy explanation. Their research aims to understand the scientific principles behind how this image was formed. For over 4 decades, Jackson has been tackling this puzzle. His fascination began in Denver when he was just 13 or 14 years old, after seeing a photo of the shroud that sparked his lifelong interest. Since then, he has designed innovative experiments to test different theories about how the shroud's image might have come into existence. His work includes exploring the possibility that the shroud's image was created by unknown or advanced technology, making it a fascinating subject for ongoing scientific investigation. Barry Schwartz, a key member of the team that visited Italy in the 1970s, has played a crucial role in photographing and documenting the Shroud of Turin. His extensive work has been instrumental in the ongoing research and study of this mysterious relic. To this day, scientists worldwide rely on the data collected by the Shroud of Turin Research Project for their investigations. This data includes detailed chemical, physical, and biological analyses, making it a cornerstone for any serious research on the shroud. The Vatican has endorsed the 1978 data as the official scientific information on the shroud and has no intention of allowing further testing, except for preservation purposes. This decision underscores the importance and reliability of the original findings. Although carbon dating in 1988 suggested the shroud was from the 14th century, discoveries, including evidence of pollen grains from plants that only grow in the Middle East, and historical records that trace the shroud's existence back to at least the 6th century, have led many researchers to question the accuracy of the carbon dating results. The debate over the shroud's true age and origin continues, but no serious examination can overlook the vast amount of scientific evidence from the 1978 study. The data gathered by STURP includes findings related to the unique image formation, which remains unexplained by modern science, and traces of blood that match the AB blood type, rare globally, but common in the Middle East. Anyone keen on forming an informed opinion should delve into these test results. Unfortunately, much of the scientific research on the shroud remains inaccessible to the general public, hidden away in specialized journals and technical reports. This lack of accessibility has contributed to the ongoing mystery and intrigue surrounding the Shroud of Turin. Modern science and medieval photography clash. In recent years, the Shroud of Turin has undergone its most intense and thorough examination ever, particularly in 1969, 1973, and especially in 1978. These studies involved the Shroud of Turin research project, which brought together a team of scientists from diverse fields to analyze the cloth. During these examinations, thousands of photographs were taken of the cloth and its mysterious image, using advanced imaging techniques such as X-ray fluorescence and ultraviolet light photography. With the rise of personal computers and the explosive growth of the internet, the shroud has become more accessible for study than ever before. High-resolution images and detailed data have been made available online, allowing a global community of researchers and enthusiasts to examine the shroud in unprecedented detail. Since the late 1970s, numerous researchers, scholars, unbelievers, and professional debunkers have put forth their theories on how the image on the shroud was created or have claimed to discover other hidden artifacts within the image. Some theories suggest the image was formed by a burst of radiant energy, possibly linked to the resurrection of Jesus. Others propose that the image could have been created using medieval photography techniques. Some of these theories are based on solid scientific research and are highly credible. For instance, studies have shown that the image has three-dimensional properties, which are challenging to explain with simple artistic techniques. However, other theories show a complete misunderstanding of the shroud's properties and lack real research, yet they have still managed to gain significant public attention. In some cases, these less credible theories have even been woven into the mythology surrounding the shroud. Professor Nicholas Allen has proposed a fascinating theory called proto-photography. According to this theory, the essential elements for creating photography were not just available in medieval times, but someone used them. He suggests that medieval photographers made a special light-sensitive substance, applied it to linen cloth, and used a large room-sized camera obscura to capture images. For their subjects, they used a dead body placed in front of the camera's lens. Allen's theory further explains that the image on the Shroud of Turin, a famous religious artifact, was created in two stages. First, the front part of the cloth was exposed to light, and then, after flipping it over, the back part was exposed. Each side took about 4 days to expose properly, so the entire process would have taken at least 8 days. Recently, Allen updated his theory to include an additional step, a separate exposure of the face using a different lens. This adjustment was made to avoid the problem of the body decaying from prolonged exposure to bright sunlight, which was necessary for the image to develop correctly. Allen proposes that the camera obscura might have been used in a cold climate. Despite his extensive research and detailed documentation of early references to lenses and camera obscura, He hasn't been able to find a single example of this early photography method in art or photographic history. Although he has explored historical mentions of lenses and cameras, he hasn't proven that anyone in medieval times ever combined this knowledge with the complex chemical and physical techniques needed for photography. If someone had, it's puzzling why they didn't create more examples of this fascinating art form. If such works had existed, they would likely have made their creators famous. Instead, the lack of evidence suggests that photography, as people know it, was more likely developed during the early stages of the Industrial Revolution rather than in medieval times. Professor Nicholas Allen's bold theory. Professor Nicholas Allen has recently shared a new theory about the Shroud of Turin. He now believes that the shroud might be a combination of 3 separate exposures. According to Allen, the facial image on the shroud was created in a completely different and third exposure, separate from the rest of the image. He supports this idea by noting that he has detected spherical aberration and optical distortion in the facial image, which leads him to this conclusion. If this is true, it would make the process of creating the shroud even more complex. For a medieval photographer, this would have been extremely challenging, and even with today's advanced digital imaging technology, replicating such a perfect composite image would be very difficult. It would require a highly skilled photographic expert, making the idea that a medieval photographer could have created it seem almost unbelievable. The shroud features intricate details on both the front and back views, while Allen notes that the dorsal image has less detail because facial features and fingers are not visible from behind. It still contains significant information. The back of the shroud shows numerous scourge marks across the shoulders, back, buttocks, and legs. These marks have been carefully examined and verified by at least 3 expert forensic pathologists and anatomists, proving their authenticity. He also claimed that the shroud shows stigmata, which aligns with the religious customs of the 13th and early 14th centuries. This view, however, is strongly contested by numerous expert forensic pathologists who have meticulously analyzed the shroud. These specialists all agree that the pathology depicted on the cloth is not only highly accurate, but also remarkably realistic. For example, the detailed depiction of wounds and blood flow aligns with historical medical knowledge of the time, far surpassing what would be expected from medieval artwork. Furthermore, Allen neglects to address the forensic specifics of the bloodstains on the shroud. Studies conducted by the Shroud of Turin Research Project and other institutions reveal that these bloodstains are not covered by the image. Rather, the blood marks existed before the image appeared. Research shows that the presence of blood seems to have acted as a barrier, preventing the formation of the image in those areas. This finding supports the idea that blood stains and image formation are distinct processes. Professor Allen's theory does not resolve the critical issue of blood stains. His rationale is largely based on his acceptance of the carbon dating results, which date the shroud to the medieval period, and his dismissal of the image as a painting. Thus, he concludes that because the shroud exhibits certain photographic characteristics, such as a 3-dimensional effect and detailed texture that cannot be replicated by painting, it must be a photograph. This hypothesis is interesting but remains controversial and unverified by the majority of scientific experts. The resurrection-like radiation event. The combined evidence strongly suggests that the burial cloth is indeed that of Jesus of Nazareth. Furthermore, the creation of the image on the cloth through an intense burst of vacuum ultraviolet radiation hints at a resurrection event akin to those described in the Gospels. Given this compelling scientific evidence, it is crucial to conduct a new carbon dating test following standard sampling protocols. If these protocols are followed, the results are likely to align with the 4 recent dating methods, which date the shroud to around 850 AD. If this outcome is confirmed, it would significantly support the idea that the Shroud of Turin is the actual burial shroud of Jesus Christ, with indications of a resurrection event. Despite the current lack of a definitive explanation for the formation of this unique and mysterious image on the cloth, the most credible hypothesis comes from the work of two research teams. Dr. John Jackson's team proposed in 2008 that the image was formed by a burst of vacuum ultraviolet radiation. According to Jackson, a powerful burst of vacuum ultraviolet radiation caused discoloration on the very top layer of the shroud's fibers. This didn't burn the cloth, but created a perfect three-dimensional negative image of both the front and back of the body wrapped in it. As of now, there's no known natural explanation for such a unique burst of vacuum ultraviolet radiation, whether from a decomposing body or the environmental conditions inside a tomb. This mysterious occurrence hints at a possible supernatural origin of the radiation, potentially linked to Jesus' resurrection. However, scientists cannot scientifically prove this, since there's no way to test for a supernatural cause. What people can do is rule out all known natural causes for this extraordinary radiation. The exceptional and currently unexplainable nature of this event suggests that it could be evidence of Jesus' resurrection. This belief grows stronger as people gain a better understanding of the light event that appears to have created the image, and as people continue to dismiss natural causes. Jackson's hypothesis is particularly compelling, suggesting that the radiation occurred sometime after the bloodstains had dried on the shroud. The decomposing body wrapped in the Shroud of Turin emitted a brief but powerful burst of vacuum ultraviolet radiation. This intense flash caused the shroud's front and back parts to become dehydrated and discolored, resulting in a perfect photographic negative image. Jackson's research suggests that the body within the shroud became see-through and emitted light uniformly from every point in three-dimensional space. This phenomenon allowed the shroud's front part to collapse, creating images of both the inner and outer parts of the hands and forming a double image on the front of the shroud. Currently, the laws of physics cannot explain how a decomposing body could emit such a strong burst of vacuum ultraviolet radiation. Moreover, they cannot clarify how the body could become mechanically transparent and radiate light from every point within it. What does this mean for our understanding of the shroud? If Jackson's theory remains the sole explanation for the intriguing mysteries surrounding the Shroud of Turin, and if future developments in the laws of physics fail to clarify how a decomposing body could become mechanically transparent and emit vacuum ultraviolet radiation uniformly from every point within it, we may need to explore a more unconventional explanation, one that ventures into the realms of transphysical or metaphysical causes. The Shroud of Turin, a linen cloth that bears the faint image of a man, has fascinated scientists and theologians for decades. Despite numerous analyses, including carbon dating and forensic studies, the exact origin of the image remains unresolved. Jackson's theory suggests that the image could result from an intense burst of light, potentially linked to a transphysical phenomenon. This concept implies that a non-physical force or entity might have interacted with the body, creating a dramatic visual imprint on the shroud. In scientific terms, such an explanation is challenging because science is limited to studying physical events and cannot conclusively prove the existence of transphysical causes. However, if the conditions described by Jackson hold, it is reasonable to consider the possibility of a transphysical event. This doesn't mean people can definitively prove such a cause, but it opens the door to a broader range of interpretations. Now it's time for today's subscriber pick. In a hidden chamber beneath the Vatican, a team of scientists made an extraordinary discovery that would soon send shockwaves through the world. For decades, the Shroud of Turin, a centuries-old linen cloth believed to bear the image of Jesus Christ, had been the subject of intense debate and speculation. Some claimed it was a medieval forgery, while others held it as an irrefutable relic of faith. But then, in an unprecedented twist, researchers unearthed a collection of previously unknown documents and artifacts stored away in a dusty corner of the archives. Among these was a parchment, eerily preserved, detailing a mysterious experiment conducted in the 13th century. The parchment described how a secret group of medieval alchemists, using advanced techniques that defied their era's technology, had attempted to recreate the miraculous imprint of the shroud. The documents revealed a shocking twist. These alchemists had succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. They had developed a method to replicate the image with astonishing accuracy, using a process that involved an intricate blend of rare minerals, dyes, and unknown energies. This new evidence suggested that the original shroud might have been an authentic relic, but the copy had been deliberately mixed in to confuse and obscure its true origins. As news of the discovery spread, believers and unbelievers alike were left grappling with the implications. Could this new evidence validate the shroud's authenticity, or were there deeper secrets hidden within the medieval alchemists' experiments? Let us have your opinions in the comment below. The divine mystery of Jesus' resurrection. The resurrection of Jesus was not merely a revival of a lifeless body, but an extraordinary transformation into what St. Paul referred to as a spiritual body, a form imbued with divine glory, spirit, and power. This metamorphosis from a physical to a radiant spiritual state might signify the commencement of Jesus' transition from a mortal body to a glorified, celestial existence. While no scientific evidence can conclusively prove this, the intriguing similarities between the mysterious image on the Shroud of Turin and the descriptions in the New Testament offer compelling insights. For instance, the Shroud of Turin, which many believe to be the burial cloth of Jesus, presents fascinating details that support this idea. One striking feature of the shroud is that it contains no traces of paint, dyes, or pigments. This is particularly significant because the image appears to have been created without traditional artistic techniques, hinting at a different origin for the image. The blood stains on the shroud are another remarkable aspect. They are real human blood that has congealed on the cloth, and they align with the anatomical details of the image, including the wounds and the flow of the blood. This anatomical accuracy suggests that the image and the bloodstains were formed in a way that would have been beyond the capabilities of medieval forgers. Moreover, the shroud is covered with pollen grains native to Palestine, such as those from plants like Gundelia tournefortii and others specific to the region. These pollen grains provide evidence that the shroud could have been in Palestine during the time of Jesus. Additionally, small coins minted around AD 29 bearing images of Jewish high priests were found near the eyes of the figure on the shroud. This detail further supports the idea that the shroud originates from the 1st century in Palestine, not medieval Europe. The shroud also poses several significant mysteries that challenge the notion of forgery. For example, the image on the shroud has properties similar to a photographic negative, despite predating photography by over a millennium. The image is three-dimensional, showing depth and detail that modern imaging techniques have only recently discovered. Furthermore, the shroud exhibits a double image phenomenon, where the front and back images align perfectly when viewed in 3 dimensions, which is difficult to explain with medieval technology. It seems improbable and imprudent to dismiss the Shroud of Turin as a medieval forgery. Several compelling pieces of evidence strongly suggest that the shroud is directly connected to the time and place of Jesus' life, as well as to his remarkable crucifixion and resurrection. Firstly, the shroud contains traces of materials that date back to 1st century Palestine. This includes specific pollen grains and ancient coins found on the eyes of the figure depicted on the shroud. These elements are consistent with the region where Jesus is believed to have lived and died. Additionally, the blood stains on the shroud match the descriptions of crucifixion as detailed in the Gospels, including unique features such as the crown of thorns, the flogging, and the piercing by a Roman spear. These details align closely with the brutal methods of execution described in historical accounts. Furthermore, scientific analysis of the shroud reveals 5 perplexing characteristics in its image. Studies suggest that the image was formed by a burst of vacuum ultraviolet radiation, which could have come from a body that was momentarily transparent. This phenomenon suggests a miraculous transformation from a physical to a spiritual, glorified state, a concept described by St. Paul and found in Christian doctrine about the resurrection. This type of transformation was unique to early Christian beliefs and differs significantly from other views of the afterlife. For instance, Jewish beliefs focused on the resuscitation of the body, while pagan religions often envisioned immortality in terms of ghostly or ethereal forms. The shroud's image aligns with the distinctive Christian understanding of the resurrection, highlighting an appearance that diverges from both Jewish and pagan perspectives. The intricate details on the shroud offer a fascinating glimpse into a miraculous event, reinforcing the belief in Jesus' unique resurrection. The chance of this first-century Palestinian burial shroud belonging to anyone other than Jesus is incredibly slim. This is because the shroud has unique features related to Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection that are not found in any other context. The image on the shroud is not fake. It comes from a real person who lived at the time of Jesus and experienced crucifixion in the same manner as Jesus. The shroud even shows signs of intense ultraviolet radiation from the decaying body, something that adds to its authenticity. Given all this evidence, it's reasonable to believe that the shroud is indeed Jesus' burial cloth. It not only reflects his crucifixion, but also his resurrection in glory. If this is true, the shroud supports the significance of the most important event in human history and aligns with the gospel accounts of it. The truth behind the world's most controversial artifact, the Holy Shroud of Turin, is a revered relic housed in Turin, Italy. It is believed to be the actual linen cloth in which Joseph of Arimathea wrapped the body of Jesus Christ. This ancient artifact, darkened by time, bears a faint yet clear impression of a human form on both its front and back. If these marks were indeed made by a human body, it suggests that the body was laid lengthwise on one half of the shroud, while the other half was folded back over the head, covering the entire front from face to feet. The shroud was brought to Turin in 1578 and has been kept in the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist since 1694. It is displayed to the public only a few times each century, drawing millions of visitors who slowly pass by to view the images of the crucified man. The shroud is woven from linen thread, which is made from the stems of the flax plant. To create the thread, flax fibers are separated from the stem by letting the stems rot in water, making it easier to extract the fibers. The diameter of these fibers is about 15 to 20 micrometers, which is roughly 1/5 the diameter of a human hair. A typical linen thread is composed of around 100 of these tiny fibers. The Gospel of Luke, along with the other 3 Gospels, recounts the story of Jesus' burial following his crucifixion. On the morning of Jesus' resurrection, Luke notes that Peter found the strips of linen lying by themselves. In contrast, the Gospel of John mentions that Peter saw not only the linen strips, but also the cloth that had been wrapped around Jesus' head. This headcloth was still in its place, separate from the linen. This separate cloth has sparked intense interest today because many believe it might be the Shroud of Turin, thought to be Jesus' burial cloth. If proven to be true, the shroud would offer powerful evidence supporting the truth of Christianity. However, is it Jesus' burial cloth? The answer to this question hinges on historical, scientific, and biblical data, as well as insights from various other fields. Often, the actual data and popular beliefs don't align well, making it challenging to grasp the complex issues surrounding the shroud. It seems undeniable that the Shroud of Turin belonged to someone crucified. The image and stains on the shroud align closely with the Bible's description of crucifixion. Moreover, there are compelling reasons to question the carbon-14 dating that suggests the shroud is from between 1200 and 1400 AD. ABUS specifically points out significant findings that raise the strong possibility that the shroud dates back to the time of Christ. The shroud uniquely blends science and faith, demonstrating that these two realms can coexist harmoniously. Its vivid and graphic depiction of suffering brings Christ's passion to life, making it more tangible and relatable, especially for teenagers searching for their own beliefs. For many, seeing physical evidence of Jesus' suffering and resurrection can be profoundly impactful. The authenticity of the Shroud of Turin is widely accepted in various declarations by the Holy See. Notably, Pope Julius II formally approved its veneration in the bull Romanus Pontifex on April 25, 1506, referring to the shroud as the most famous cloth in which our Savior was wrapped after his crucifixion, and which is now preserved with great reverence in a silver casket. Furthermore, the same pope mentions the writings on the precious blood of his predecessor, Pope Pius IX. In these writings, Pius IX states that in the shroud, people can see the true blood and the image of Jesus Christ himself. However, there was a challenge due to the existence of other shrouds also claiming to bear the image of Jesus. Some of these were also said to be the authentic linen provided by Joseph of Arimathea. Until the end of the 19th century, there wasn't a major dispute over the authenticity of the Turin shroud. But in 1898, when the shroud was publicly displayed, permission was granted to photograph it. This caused a sensation as the photographs revealed that the image on the linen appeared to be a photographic negative. In other words, the negative produced a clearer and more recognizable image of a human face than the cloth itself or any positive prints made from it. The play of light and shadow on the shroud was so natural that it seemed to defy explanation. Years later, a scientist presented an intriguing paper to the Academy of Sciences. He argued that the image on the shroud was created by a process he called vapography. According to him, this process involved ammonia vapors that came from Christ's body after his intense death. He claimed that these vapors could leave a deep reddish-brown stain on an oily cloth, depending on how far away they were. The shroud's image was essentially a natural negative, making it completely beyond the ability of any medieval forger to replicate. The scientific explanation adds a layer of awe to the shroud's profound historical and spiritual significance. What are your thoughts about this new evidence about the Shroud of Turin that has everyone talking? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section below.